Welcome once again to Paul Barnes, who's the Managing Director of MAP, and we're here to talk about the next phase on the agency maturity curve, which is called Enhanced. So Paul, can you just give us a quick breakdown of Enhanced and how it builds from the previous phase we were looking at, which was Essentials?
Yes, so Enhanced builds on Essentials in that by this stage, your data can be relied upon and you've got a clear view of what's happened in the business for the periods that have passed. This next phase is then about being able to then project forward, to be able to use that data to say, okay, what does this tell us about what's coming next? So it requires using that data as a starting point, but then assembling other knowledge from across the business about, deals that have won or deals that are in the pipeline, commitments that we're about to take on for the business, and assembling all of that information to give a forward projection of what's around the corner for the business. So that's broken down into three parts. First of all, we want to build an annual budget. So this is very much the business plan. So month by month for the next 12 months of our financial year, how do we want the business to shape and behave? And you need to be able to reflect back on what's happened in the past to be able to make meaningful decisions and have conversations about what's realistic in our plans for the next year, so that you're not building this on pipe dreams, you're building it on real rooted data. So you build that plan to take you where you want to go, but you do it against the backdrop of the prior year and the history of the business so far. And that means that when you produce your month-end financial results, the best way of knowing how successful you were in that month is to be able to compare it against the plan that you're putting in the first place. And then you'll be able to start doing a variance analysis of where did we fall short, where did we overachieve. So the best benchmark for your business of success is to be able to compare how you've performed against the plan where you said this is what we want to achieve and this will represent success for us. So putting that budget together is the financial version of the business plan, if you like. The live forward projections then is the next phase. So that's saying, okay, we've got this annual budget that tells us what we want to do, but what does the knowledge and information across the business tell us based on what we know today about what's about to happen in the coming months? So it's projecting forward based on deals won and based on overheads that we know of, the cost base that we know of. What do the coming months look like, and how far are we today? Looking at that forward information against the budget targets that we set ourselves. The rolling cash flow forecast then translates that into cash, because there's a difference between profitability and cash. So the profit and loss account will tell us, once everybody's paid us and once we paid our bills, etc., what will the bottom line profit be based on the performance of the business this month. So that really shows you the profit and loss, how efficient you are, how productive you are at being able to generate a return for the business. The cash flow projections tell us, that the lifeblood of the business, the cash, are we going to run out of cash anytime soon? Because although we might have a healthy P&L, if customers are paying us very slowly, or we've got debts that we need to pay off, there could be, an iceberg on the way from a cash flow perspective. So I often say that, if you've got £1 million in the bank account and it's never been less than 800,000 or 900,000 in the last 24 months, maybe you don't need a cash flow forecast. But if often you're close to the brink, or there's a danger that you'll run out of cash, then you need to be able to see a proper rolling forecast for the next 13 weeks on a week by week at least basis, potentially day by day, depending on how alarming your cash balance is. And the reason for 13 weeks, that covers a full quarter. One of the biggest bills for your agency is likely to be a VAT bill. So if you do a full 13 weeks, that will cover the next VAT bill, whenever that might be.
And do most agencies that you work with currently have and value a budget?
I would say if you asked agencies, the majority would say we have a budget. but there are different levels of budgeting and then different versions of what that means to different businesses. So at the lower end, it's just setting some ambitions. You know, we would like to hit £1.2 million turnover next year. Therefore, we need to do about £100,000 a month revenue. We want our overheads to be less than 800,000 and break that down month by month. They're just targets, really. That's not what I would call a budget. A budget then actually uses the data of the past to drive the goals for the future and starts to break down the different drivers and the different elements of the business, so that you say, you know, the revenue in month 3 is going to come from these activities. In month 1 and 2, we know how many pitches we need to do. We know what our conversion rate needs to do. We know that we want this amount of revenue to come from creative and this amount to come from development and this amount to come from mobile apps. So you start to get very real about what's going to happen on the ground in order to achieve the targets of the business. So it really is a plan about to drive what the activities in the business and how do we look at this to tell us what we're actually going to do in the next 90 days to help us achieve our targets.
And this idea of the projections being live, why is it important that they have that sense of immediacy, the sense of liveness?
It helps to project the implications of decisions. So the operations director might say, we really need someone on web development projects for the next 3 months. And if you've not got projections in place, that might be, well, they're asking, they must therefore need it. Therefore, we need to go and hire a new person. But the financials would say, okay, let's just look at that and see what it means for the business in the next few months. Can we afford it? What would the implications be? If we do that, do we still achieve our budget? Or do we need to now drive more revenue to pay for that? Do we need to make cuts elsewhere so that we still hit our bottom line number? So it just allows you to have a more mature conversation about the knock-on effects of any decisions that you're going to make. It might be that a new hire also needs a new laptop. We also need to increase our IT subscriptions, etc. So a proper budget that has been turned into a projection will help to model what all the implications of those decisions are and what all the connected associated costs of it are.
And then the cash flow, rolling cash flow from that then is the reality of how much money you've got to make those investments happen.
Yeah, so that shows how it then translates to cash and the lag of it converting into cash. So it depends on your working capital cycles, how quickly you get paid, how quickly you pay your suppliers, etc. The cash outcome of the decisions that you make could have a long lagging effect.
And how can agency leaders start to pinpoint areas that a finance team can improve on?
So as we said, this is sort of phase 2 of the maturity curve. We've created a scorecard that helps agencies to position themselves on this curve. It asks a number of simple yes/no questions to provide a diagnosis of the areas that they're doing well and what are some of the areas that they might need to improve in. And this is phase 2 of those 3. The scorecard takes you through all 3 phases, and it gives you a score overall and a score for each of the 3 phases individually as well.
Thanks, Paul. And details of the scorecard and how you can use it and get some useful results from it appearing here.
Thanks, Richard.
Thanks, Paul.